everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film my TBR check-in and book haul for the month of August. So during the month of August, I was doing my 30 books in 30 days challenge, which I did complete, which has had tremendously good things made tremendously good things happen to my TBR, my physical TBR. So let's just get into the numbers right off the bat. I read a total of 32 books in the month of August. 23 of those are off my shelf. I brought in 11. I DNF'd and unhauled 1. So that is a minus 13 for the month, which brings me back down to 116, almost to where I was back in March. I was at 115 in March, and then I got that Penguin Green Ideas box set, and like things just went berserk at that point. So I am back down to nearly where I was in March. So I feel extremely good about how I did in the month of August. I will say that, you know, reading all the short books on your TBR does wonders for getting your numbers down. But of course, then it leaves you with chunkier books to deal with later. But that's all right. That's all right. We are not going to worry about that right now. And also, I didn't go too overboard with bringing new books into my house during the month of August. So just before we get started with the new books, the book that I DNF'd and will be unhauling is this copy of King Lear by Shakespeare. This is a Dover thrift edition, and I don't know if it was the particular edition. I tried to do this as a audiobook text combination, and I just could not. Like, everybody was a miserable person. It seemed to be like making light of, you know, like dementia and elderly people who get confused at the end of their life. And I just was like, no, I am not in the mood for this. So I said, let's just let it go. Maybe I'll try a different edition and see if that helps me get along with the book better. But it was just nobody was a nice person, and it just was not something I wanted to read at the time. So that's going. The other book that I want to just briefly mention is, so before I put this one aside, this was off the Ancient TBR, and I also read My Name is Lucy Barton off the Ancient TBR, so that's 2 down from this very small stack of what was once 2 shelves worth of books. So I'm feeling pretty good about the Ancient TBR. And then the other thing to mention is I did purchase this copy of The Tangled Tree, A Radical New History of Life by David Quammen, but I read this book earlier this year, and I listened to it on audiobook, and I wanted the physical copy because this book has, you know, it has photographs, and it has these line drawings, and of course when you have the audiobook, you don't get the benefit of any of that. So I wanted my own copy so that I could read this again and have all the illustrations and the photos. So that does not count against me because I've already read it. Okay, now for the 11 books that I did bring in. First of all is a book that was sent to me by a publisher, and that is Deer Man, 7 Years of Living in the Wild by Geoffrey Delorme. And this is translated from the Spanish? Hold on. Translated by Sean Whiteside. And I think, is this France or Spain? I cannot remember for the life of me. France. So this is translated from the French. And Grey Wolf reached out to Book Naturalists and asked Doris and I if we would like a copy of this to read and review. So they kindly sent me a copy of this, Grey Stone, not Grey Wolf. Yes, Grey Stone. Thank you very much. And I received this like very few days after they reached out to me, which was awesome. It came so quickly. And then my husband immediately grabbed it up and started reading it. So this is his bookmark. He is halfway through it already. My husband, who doesn't read books, grabbed this away from me and read it and is reading it. So I cannot read it until he is finished reading it, but that is great. And it comes out in September this month. So this one, take a look for this, especially if you're looking for more translated nonfiction, which I don't think there's enough of in the world, and especially translated nature nonfiction. So I'm excited about this. It's about a man who goes, as it says, goes off and lives in the wild for 7 years with a herd of deer. So that sounds super interesting. Thank you very much to Greystone for reaching out and sending me this copy to read. Then I picked up a collection of short stories. This is Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty. Morgan Talty is a member of the Penobscot Nation, which is a tribe, an indigenous tribe native to the area we now call Maine. They live in the watershed of the Penobscot River, which is, you know, the river and the tribe are intimately connected. So I was very interested to read this book. Sean, the book maniac, first brought it to my attention. And so, yeah, I am planning to start this in September. Very, very excited to read this one. And, you know, I'm not a short story person, but the topic of this is all stories about growing up on a reservation in Maine and what that's like, and different topics related to living as a member of the Penobscot Nation. So very excited for that one. Of course, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for all of these. I know this is the thing that happens to all of us, right? When we do book hauls, is we can't help ourselves but say we're excited about everything. I'm trying to get these organized in the manner to which they came into the house, which is very difficult. Okay. Then another gift that I received was this from Britta Bowler. This is Joseph Anton, a memoir by Salman Rushdie. And of course, with the horrific attack on Rushdie that happened a few weeks ago, I have been interested in reading more of his work. I just finished Languages of Truth, his essay collection, his most recent essay collection, and mentioned to Britta that I was interested in reading this memoir, which is all about his life after the fatwa was declared, after the publication of the Satanic Verses, and she very kindly sent it to me. It is a chunker of a memoir, but I am planning to read this one in the month of September, or at least start it in the month of September. I don't know if I will finish it, but I am going to start it. So that is another one that will be read soon. Then, as we know, last month was Women in Translation Month, and I did read 4 books by women in translation, but I picked up this one because I'd heard so much about it on BookTube. This is Elena Knows by Claudia Pineiro, and it's translated by Frances Riddle. And this is sort of, from what I understand, and I don't know a lot about it, and I don't want to because it's sort of a mystery novel about a mom whose daughter is found hanged in a church, and she does not believe that her daughter would have committed suicide, and so she is determined to find out what really happened to her daughter. But she is suffering from Parkinson's disease, I believe, and so she has physical limitations because of her illness, and that makes it difficult for her to sort of like track down things. So several things there that I'm interested in, and from everyone that I've heard talk about it, just sounds amazing. And I believe this was translated from is it translated from the Portuguese? I can't remember. But Claudia Pineiro is from Buenos Aires. So yes, I'm glad to have another translated book, because I read, like I said, I read 4 books by women in translation in the month of August, and that might have been all of the books by women in translation that were on my TBR, so I'm glad to have that one to look forward to. I then picked up a book by Octavia Butler, and I've bent the top of it already. This is Fledgling, which is her vampire novel, and I am interested in trying to work my way through all of Octavia Butler's books. I've read probably 4 or 5 at this point, and I would really, really like to read all of her works because I really enjoy her science fiction and the way that she tells a story. Everything that I've read so far, I've really enjoyed. So I thought, I found this one, I think I got it off Book Outlet, and it was for a very, very reasonable price. And I thought, yes, how about a vampire novel, particularly maybe in October? That seems like a good book to pick up for them. I am also trying to read my way through the books by Rachel Carson. I've read 2. There was a book of 4 that she wrote, sort of, I think 3 or 4, like sort of that were considered together, and then also Silent Spring. I've read Silent Spring, and I've read the first 2 books, and I believe this is the 3rd book in that set of 4 that she wrote in her lifetime. This is The Edge of the Sea by Rachel Carson, and it has an introduction by Sue Hubble, who I also enjoy as a science writer, and Edge of the Sea is exploring marine habitats, so rocky shores, sandy beaches, mud flats, coral reefs, all that stuff. You know, that's my jam. Has cool illustrations in this edition. So that's awesome. You know, can't get enough of that kind of stuff. This is right up my alley. I don't believe it will be very long before I will be picking up The Edge of the Sea. Just love Rachel Carson so much. I picked up In the Country of Others by Leila Slimani, which is a novel, because I'm going to be buddy reading this in October with Patrice. And this is a novel that takes place in Morocco after World War II and leads up to the revolt against French colonialism. And I don't really know anything other than that. I know this was published in 2020. So interestingly enough, this says on the cover page here, Volume 1, War, War, War. And this is translated from the French by Sam Taylor, which I didn't even realize this was translated. So, hey, look at that. Another book in translation. Go me. So this is our author, Leila Slimani. And I had heard of her book, The Perfect Nanny. I don't know if I read it or not, but I definitely heard a lot about it. And then this one came out, and I heard a little bit about it, but not too much. And then when Patrice suggested that we read this one, I thought, yes, let's read that one. I'd like to know more about it. I really think that's a cool cover with this lemon dipped in orange. Wonder what that's all about. Very, very intriguing. The next one I picked up is Blanket Toss Under Midnight Sun, Portraits of Everyday Life in 8 Indigenous Communities by Paul Seesequasis. Excuse me, that was probably a terrible pronunciation. And so this is the author's attempt to grapple with the findings in the Truth and Reconciliation Report in 2015. And so it's just a lovely collection of photos with stories about the pictures. I heard about this on Sean the Book Maniac's channel, and the minute that he talked about it, I was like, oh yes, I must have this book. And so I actually ended up finding it again on Book Outlet for a very reasonable price, and I was super excited to see it and super glad to pick it up, because that looks like something I'm really gonna connect well with, and just really interested in reading more. I've been on this kick, as you know, to read stuff about indigenous communities and the history behind how folks were treated by the colonial governments as they entered what we now know as North America. And Sean and I did a bunch of reading, not last year, but the year before, about how indigenous folks were treated in what we now know as Canada. And this is sort of following up on that reading. And then the last 3 books are books that I picked up during my vacation week. I was able to go to do some book shopping, and so I have a sticker on this one, and I want to peel that off before I hold it up. Okay, this is a book I picked up secondhand from my favorite independent bookshop, the one that's closest to me and sells new and used books. And this is Rust by Eliese Colette Goldbach. I believe I first heard about this on Olive's channel, a Book Olive. And this is a memoir of a young woman who goes to college, gets her degree, and then can't find any work. And so ends up taking a job at a steel factory and working shift work in this steel factory. And she also is grappling with a diagnosis of bipolar disease. So it sounded really interesting. I like these types of memoirs where it's sort of working class background and grappling with, like, you're the member, you know, you're a generation where you've gotten further along in your education than maybe previous generations in your family, but yet you're still having a tough time trying to pull yourself up to the next socioeconomic level, as it were. Sort of reminds me of Sarah Smarsh's work in documenting what it's like to be a poor woman in rural America. Super interested in that topic. And this is on the front, it says, Elements of Tara Westover's Educated, which Educated was a great book. So that's really intriguing and super awesome cover as well. So that one is another nonfiction book about socioeconomic stuff. I then picked up Extraordinary Insects, The Fabulous Indispensable Creatures Who Run Our World by Sverdrup-Thygeson. Sverdrup-Thygeson. And this is a book that will be on the list for us in 2023 for Book Naturalist Book Club. So just keep that in the back of your mind. That's the reason I picked it up, because Doris and I have already mapped out what the books are going to be for next year. So this is a little sneaky peek. This is also another book in translation. This is translated by Lucy Moffat, and this book was previously published as Buzz, Sting, Bite, Why We Need Insects. And I love this cover. I am super interested in reading about insects. The whole concept of the like huge extinction, huge levels of extinction that are happening right now in the insect world is like really scary to me, and I want to read more about it and know more about it. So this one is one that I'm highly anticipating for 2023. And yet another book by a woman author in translation. So that's 3 so far. Good job, Heidi. And then last but not least, I picked up a book that I gifted to Britta for her birthday. And once she had it, I was like, well, I have to have that book too, because it sounds amazing. This is Bitch on the Female of the Species by Lucy Cooke. And Lucy Cooke is a science writer, and she, in this book, is talking about gender and how what we in our culture have decided, we're still grappling with this idea that gender is not a binary. And so Lucy Cooke goes through the rest of the living creatures that live on our planet and talks about how in many other species, like it's definitely not a cut and dry male-female dichotomy, and has plenty of examples and talks about how other species, how it's much more fluid between what we consider gender. So I am excited to read this because I am interested in this topic for A, and B, anytime we have something from science that sort of overturns conventional thinking of our culture and our society, that's like an area that I'm particularly interested in reading about. So yeah, and this cover, again, fabulous cover. So yeah, very awesome book haul. I'm super excited about my August book haul because like every one of those books I want to pick up and read immediately. And some of these, Bitch is also a book that's going to be on the Book Naturalist Book Club reading list for 2023. It's going to be real difficult to wait to wait until that one comes around. I can tell you that. I hope that this has been interesting to you. I hope you see some titles here in this book haul that you find interesting as well. Please let me know if any of them particularly speak to you. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read, and I will talk to you later.